What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Deadlock podcast. I'm your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is Manpreet, my guy from MMA Lock of the Night, and we are trying out some new things here on the show. We're going to have a bit more of a relaxed format than usual, hanging out, having a good time. It's UFC London. And on that note,
oh my God. Oh my God. Did he actually get a
Paddy the Baddy fight week, baby?
Wow.
Let's go.
Wow.
Buddy. How you
when
doing
did that
today?
get in the mail? When did you get that shit?
I've been hanging on to this bad boy for when you and I got to go toe to toe on Paddy the Baddy, and I've been waiting. I've been saving it. I didn't wear it on any other shows. I didn't wear it on my podcast. I saved it for this exact moment so I could share it with you live on camera.
I love it. I love it. You know, sticking to the gimmick. You obviously bought his stonk a couple weeks ago as well. So you're fully on the Paddy the Baddy train. Luckily for you, I am on the Paddy train this weekend as well against Jordan Levitt. But like the long term, you know, I see the stop coming ahead. I can't see the name yet, but I know there's eventually going to be a name of that stop that I'm going to hop off that Paddy the Baddy train with. But sick sweater. Is there anything on the back, or is it just Paddy the Baddy on the front?
Yeah, it's just Paddy the Baddy on the front. Obviously, it's Barstool, so we got the logo here on the
What's
sleeve.
On the other side?
Got the Liverpool.
Liverpool?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's thick.
That's pretty sweet, man. Yeah.
It's a good sweater, man. This thing has got some heft to it. I'm gonna be using it come winter time. It's 120 degrees over here right now, so I'm gonna be struggling to make it through the show with it on, if we're being honest. But I will definitely look to use it around winter time when we go to try to chop down a Christmas tree or something.
Yeah, I was wondering. I'm like, in AZ, when are you going to need a thick sweater like that to really go out and stay warm? The weather should keep you warm enough, but I know there are parts of Arizona that you told me that you go to that it actually gets pretty cold. So I like it, man. Not a bad sweater, man. I love the red. I love the black. I love obviously Barstool supporting these guys. I'm surprised you didn't get a Meatball Molly McCann one, because I'm sure they got one of those as well, don't they?
I'm sure they do, but I, had to go with Paddy the Baddy. I don't need two. Let's be honest. I barely need anything more than a sweater. So I definitely don't need two ultra hoodies, because it's just I'm not in places that are that cold often enough. The one will do.
Yeah, exactly. You should have shipped it over to me, and I'll wear it like reluctantly. You know, I mean, just walk around and be like, yeah, I'm a Paddy the Baddy fan. And then whenever I'm about to bet against him, I'll just burn his sweater or something.
We should have thought of this ahead of time, man, because that's the move. When you and I go head to head, the prize when Paddy wins is going to be you get the sweater, and you got to.
I take a picture of it and just put it as my profile picture for like a month or something. Like
exactly.
maybe that will work. I'm sure one of these days, like, Paddy's going to find out about my secret hatred towards him, and then he's just going to come after me. You know, I mean, it's just a matter of time before this podcast blows up too, right, Clint?
Like, there is too much opportunity for that kind of shit on the internet these days. We see more and more fighters getting into Twitter and shit posting and getting into gambling. And so I DM'd you the other day because
that was hilarious.
Followed me, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I've done nothing. If he goes back and watches like the last 2 or 3 episodes, I've done nothing but talk shit about Cody Brundage and talk about how I don't believe in him and I don't think he's all that good and I've bet against him. And I'm like, that's not good. That's just not going to work out. And actually, Dustin Jacoby followed me as well. He's been following me for some time, said he likes my content. And then I bet Jung, and I immediately noticed the follow notification was gone. The next time I saw a tweet from Dustin Jacoby, he unfollowed. I'm like, I can't blame them. If you've got somebody who you kind of build that, rapport with, or somebody that you like, you don't want to have people on the internet rooting against you or anything. You know, for me, it's all business. It's just betting. I'm a fan of all the fighters that step into the cage, but I can understand why they wouldn't want to follow somebody who is actively rooting against them, even if it's just for one night. But like, yeah, it's tough, man. It's we're dodging bullets out here as content creators.
Hey, Hanyak, Jacoby, if you want to follow me, you know what I mean? I bet you as a dog than I play this past weekend. So at least I'll be supporting you. I know I picked against your teammate the previous week with Cody Brundage, but I felt like I made it right by betting on you that weekend. And I appreciate you cashing my plus 107 ticket. Clint, it was funny because we hopped off the stream last week or 2 weeks ago and talked about this fight. And it seemed like we had that similarity in terms of having the confidence on Dustin Jacoby and being puzzled and mystified by the amount of love that was coming in on the Korean fighter Jung. What flipped you, man? What flipped you? You seem to have the confidence, my dog.
Again, man. Are you gonna make me relive it again?
Of course. I gotta put you on the spot here.
Shit,
hey, you had a winning event. That's why I don't mind, you know, poking a little bit of fun here. But you seem pretty convicted on the the Dustin Jacoby side. And come fight day, here I find out that you decide to flip the script here and go with the Korean fighter. Well, what changed? What got
you? Know what? I'm fine with poking fun because, like you said, I had a good night. I did end up winning overall, even with that misstep. So it's okay. It just stings a little. You know what, man? It's funny because, and here we go. Like, it's a good thing he already unfollowed me because if he heard this, he would just check the box again. I've never been a Jacoby guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Him as a person, I like him. As a character, I like him. His fighting skills, he's fine. But I've gone back and I'm like, man, I've tried to bet against this guy several times. Like, I didn't think he was going to beat Maxine Grisham. You go back and you watch that fight with Grisham. He got saved by the bell in round 1. He barely fought his way back into that fight. That fight could have gone the other way. It was not as dominant as I thought it was on first watching. I went back and watched it again and was like, shit, dude, like this could have gone the other way. Like, it's one of those things where I feel like he's just been kind of barely skating by. This Jacoby 2.0 that showed up against Dawoon Jung, like, when does he knock anybody out, Locke? Like, he doesn't knock anybody out. That was something that I did not see coming. So I thought the size, the youth, the power, like all of that goes to Dawoon Jung. And if he decides to grapple, that goes to Jung as well. I'm not worried about Jung gassing the way the last couple of opponents of Jacoby have. We know that's a thing that Ion Cutelaba does. That's a known weakness for him. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like the stars have kind of aligned for Dustin. And I've always gone against Dustin thinking he's just not gonna hack it. Now when I flip and suddenly I'm on him, I've done that time and time betting before and I always lose. It's like, you know what? I was right the last 5 times. It just didn't quite happen. The time I flip and I jump on the train, that's when it's like, fuck, I was right. Why didn't I fade him just one more time? So I kind of had that thought and I dug back in and I went through and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of shortchanging Dawoon Jung a little bit. I've poked holes in his resume this whole time. He's like 27, 28 years old. I'm like, he's getting better. I need to give credit for the kid having room to grow. I've done that with some other fighters. I wasn't offering him that option. The fact is, Locke, what I should have done is passed. This is a new rule for me gambling. If I flip-flop on a pick, I'm not betting it. I've done it time and time and time again. And no matter what, you always seem to come in on the losing side of it, because if you were convicted one way before and you're convicted on the other side now, what if something changed there? That's enough of a waiver that you shouldn't be betting it. And that's where I'm going to protect myself from now on. If I'm hard on something early in the week and I flip entirely by Friday, I'm just done. I'm just off it. I'm just going to say, you know what? I want to keep my money in my pocket because I seem to be wrong more than I'm right. You think long, you think wrong.
You see, when we get into these discussions and breaking down fights, we get very deep inside of them, right? Like you went pretty deep in terms of how your mind flipped. You're giving Jung the benefit of the doubt, being the younger guy, probably making improvements in between fights. And then we get a fight where, it goes, what was it? 2 minutes long, barely 2 minutes long, where Jacoby ended up getting that knockout and got him out of there. We didn't even get to see that fight truly play out. So like me on the Jacoby side, yes, I'm happy that I cashed my ticket, but I can't really be puffing my chest and pounding my chest and saying, oh, it was a great bet because it played out the way that I expected it to.
And if I saw a finish, a little quick.
Yeah.
Could have been just a little quick.
I kind of understand the stoppage based on how he fell and how it all looked. It just didn't look the greatest, right? Aesthetically, didn't look the greatest for the referee there.
Agreed.
But I would have liked to see that fight play out and go at least 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes, and see how everybody's kind of analysis start to line up, right? If it was an early Jung finish, people can pound the chest and be like, that's how we expected Jung to win. But I think the majority of people that were on Jacoby probably saw that fight going into the second, maybe even third round, and possibly a decision victory for Jacoby, which is what I predicted. I said there was a possibility that he could finish him in the third round, but we didn't even get that far. And that's the shitty part about highly debated fights, is when you don't see it concluded, in a satisfying way, where you don't feel like you got your full bang for a buck. Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo.
I was just going to use that example. I always wanted them to run that fight back, because how often does Aldo get starched in 5 seconds? You know what I mean? Like, that's the exact situation that I'm talking about, man.
Yeah, we just got to see it play out. That's it.
Yep.
Fights that we probably won't see play out for a long time is probably the thumbnail that we have here for the Deadlock podcast this week. And I would love to just dig into that one too, because there were a couple other fight announcements announced over the last 24 hours, but this has got to be one of the biggest ones. Khamzat Chimaev against Nate Diaz. 5-round main event. I saw your TikTok. That was actually the first thing I saw in regards to that fight being announced, which is even more funny to me. But how you reacted there is exactly how I reacted, right? It's interesting when we get a guy like Chimaev, who, then again, we've never really had a guy like Chimaev, right? Like, we've had the guys that ascend quickly to the top, like the Conor McGregors in a sense, right? But not with the domination that Khamzat Chimaev has been doing. Sure, he felt a little bit of resistance in his last fight against Gilbert Burns, but he's getting a big pay-per-view spot, pay-per-view main event against probably the number 3 draw in the UFC.
I was going to say number 3. What? Where are you going with this one, Locke?
Definitely not number 3 welterweight or number 3 middleweight. Is this fight taken at welterweight? Is that what's happening? Like, I'm assuming that's where it's going, right? Khamzat wanted to jump 170 and 185 a lot of times, but yeah, this fight more than likely should be at 170. Yeah, I don't see this one lasting long, man. I think he gets the Nate Diaz rub. I think he gets a little bit of that exposure. That's probably what the UFC wanted. I don't mind it. Just don't give him a title shot after this. That's all.
Oh, he's getting the title shot, Locke.
I hope not.
You know this. Like,
get a legitimate win. Get Nate Diaz, then get Colby Covington.
Burns was the legitimate win. They don't want him to fight anybody else. This is a resume booster. This is get your boy Khamzat just a little bit more, training and evolution time. He's going to win this fight. He's going to smoke Diaz, and then he's going to get on the mic and say, "I smash everybody." And he's going to get the title shot, man. That's what comes next.
Yeah, I could see it, man. I could honestly see it. Wasn't that Leon Edwards' path to the title shot as well? Getting to Nate Diaz, and then he finally got the ticket there. So, yeah, like, if Kamaru goes out there and smashes through Leon Edwards, as he's been pretty much doing with most of that division there, who else is there really that we want to see him fight, right? Like,
just Colby. That's the only other option, right?
And again, we don't want to see that run back for another time, considering we've already seen it. And yeah, I don't know, man. Let's see here. Let's go through the welterweights real quick here. Top 5 welterweights. I have an
idea here too, though, Locke. We do have viewers, and we are trying to be more interactive this episode.
There you go.
I want to hear the chat. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Who else do we need to see either Khamzat fight next or fight Usman for the title? Does it just make sense for Usman to fight Khamzat if he beats Nate Diaz? Because I think
just look at the top 5 here. The only guy that hasn't really fought Kamaru is Bilal Muhammad, right? The Santa Luque number 6 just lost to Muhammad. Another guy on the rise is Shavkat Rakhmonov, but he still probably needs a couple more wins. Sean Brady is up there as well. These are guys that still need a couple dubs to go out there and stay claimed to a title shot. But Kamaru's doing what he's doing, right? He's defending against the guys that are willing and the clear number 1 contenders. Leon Edwards is obviously the only one that's sticking out right now that still requires that. But I think, like, either Chimaev will get the title shot, or I could see them finagling. Probably not. Like, the winner of Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, that deserves a top 4 fighter. And then after that should be the number 1 contender there. Right?
I do agree. I think we're getting the PFL treatment there, though. They want an exciting fight. They want a finisher. They want someone that's going to jump all over the highlight reel, things like that. You're not really getting that with Bilal. And as much as we all know how dangerous Brady is, you're not really getting that with Brady either. So like one of those guys really needs to do something impressive, in my opinion, for them to go ahead and pile on. Brandon Olivas here in the chat saying, Clint, thoughts on Democrates? I'm not sure when he's fighting. When is Democrates' next fight? Who is he lined up against? Is he a PFL fighter? I'm not sure. I recognize the name. I feel like I should know it, but for some reason he's just not, coming up on top in the head here. So True saying Usman's licking his lips. Are we talking about Khamzat? Because man, I think Usman's running to 205 to avoid Khamzat.
Dude, I think at this point in time, it's Kamaru against his own body. Like that's really what it's going to come down to. And I'm scared that once he starts fighting these hungry guys like the Chimaevs, what if his injuries and his body start working against him? He's getting up there in age. We know about his whole thing in terms of not being able to do road work because he has bad knees. That's my concern. At what point is it going to show? I don't know if it'll be this time, but yeah, I like Kamaru. I think he's one of the best. He is the best fighter in the UFC right now.
Yeah,
maybe with the exception of Alexander Volkanovski.
Usman was a guy that I doubted for a real long time, man, and I thought that he was going to get absolutely smashed by prime Tyrone Woodley. I've never been more wrong in my life. And after he's done what he's done the last couple fights, I came around completely. And I'm just like, nobody's touching this man. Like, Khamzat is the only guy that looks like he might be able to cause this guy problems. I want to see the fight with Leon Edwards. Don't get me wrong. I think Leon poses some interesting challenges. But let's be real, man. If Nate Diaz can outlast you and then almost take you out in round 5, I wonder what the punching power of Usman will do to you. That fight may be boring. It might be more of a wrestling match than we'd like it to be, but I still think Usman absolutely dominates Leon Edwards. And I really think that Khamzat is probably really the only guy that's going to cause him a problem here in this top 5.
August 20th, Kamaru Usman defends his title against Leon Edwards. So we'll see if the welterweight king can get past there. Casual MMA here saying big difference in answer for what UFC wants versus what should happen next. Should be Bilal or Covington, but will likely be Strap season 4 or Strap next for Khamzat Chimaev. I kind of agree, right? Like that's why they're giving him the Nate Diaz matchup. Build your name, young wolf, and go out there and get a title shot after that. Jordan Shep saying Usman will retire before he fights Chimaev. It's going to be tough to pass up, especially if Chimaev, like we said, he'll likely go out there, beat Nate Diaz, and he'll likely call out Usman. Usman has no other clear number 1 contender. I think all of us are agreeing that Bilal or Sean Brady will still need another signature win to stamp themselves a title shot, especially after their main event that they have coming up. When is that fight? That's what I'm curious about. Sean Brady and Bilal Muhammad.
That's a great question.
Sean Brady, fighter. Muhammad, October 22nd on my birthday, UFC 280.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, that is a great card. Afternoon card it's going to be as well because it's going to be in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, that's Charles Oliveira against Islam Makhachev, Bilal Muhammad against Sean Brady, Piotr Yan against Sean O'Malley, Aljamain Sterling against TJ Dillashaw. We can talk about those as well. Let's just get a couple more of these comments in here, and then we'll talk about these other couple fights that have been announced over the last 24 hours. Mr. Always Profits, thinking exactly what I'm thinking. Nobody beats Usman unless it's injuries. Could absolutely happen there. True Shot wonders if he's going to be able to out wrestle Usman. That's the big question here, right? Like Chimaev, that's usually been his calling card, is being able to grapple his opponents into the mats and just smash them through it. Kamaru Usman, if I'm not mistaken, I think he has 100% takedown defense still. Maybe Colby Compton was able to land at least one on him, but never got significant amount of control time on him either. So there we go. Here's a good one here from my guy, Mr. Always Profit. Early prediction for Brady versus Bilal. This is kind of along the narrative, the whole Chimaev storyline that we got going on. I think that Brady will likely be able to turn the tables on Bilal here, right? Bilal's calling card over the last couple fights has been go out there doing the Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington thing, drawing your opponents with takedowns, pressure, and pace. But I think that Brady, anytime he, is Bilal going to look to actively take this guy to the ground? Like, is he going to do that?
I would think so. I mean, that's kind of Bilal's game, right? Like, what else does Bilal really do? We do get that grappler versus grappler cancels each other out, bad striking match for 15 minutes type of setup. But damn, man, I can't imagine either of these guys really wanting to go too much to that game plan. I kind of feel like this is one where we are going to find out who the stronger guy is. We are going to find out who's going to get tested in the grappling realm, just because they're both so heavy on it. That is their A path to victory. I kind of think we're going to see grappling, believe it or not. And I hope we do. I would love to see it. A high level wrestling and BJJ matchup between these guys would be right what I want to see, and let us know really if one of them is ready for somebody like Usman. Obviously, we know some of these higher end guys have better striking, but we're curious if they can deal with the wrestling, because Usman always has that in his back pocket, right?
Yeah, that fight is going to answer a lot of questions, though. Like Bilal versus Brady, going to test the striking of Brady, going to test the grappling defense of Bilal Muhammad as well, because we know Sean Brady is absolute, is an absolute monster and a beast when he's able to get his hands around his opponents. We saw the Michael Chiesa fight. Michael Chiesa was the one doing that to everybody, and then he got pretty much worked in that fight against Sean Brady as well. So very interested to see how that one plans out. But Clint, let's talk about a couple of the other fights that got announced, because there's some big ones. The one that I want to touch
quick,
on the most.
Luck, before you do that, I got to shout out my guy Zach Z. He says thoughts on parlaying some of these favorites and anchoring on Nunez next week, and then says, never mind, I know my stance. Yeah. And you absolutely do know my stance. Now,
this is Clint right here. This is Clint right here.
Yeah, exactly. In fairness, though, that's a nice little hedge out spot, right? Like how much wider of a spot do you want to get where you're like, I've got the GOAT, I can hedge a little bit on the underdog at a nice price tag to make like a guaranteed lock up money type of situation. If the favorites do end up rolling, that's a perfect spot for that. And you can get a nice plus 300 ticket on the underdog to make sure you give yourself a profitable middle spot. So you can still follow the strategy, although I still think the dog just is the way to go in that fight.
I can't wait till we have like the preview episode for like what we'll obviously talk about that matchup. I believe that when is that fight?
It's coming up.
Is that
it's only 30th? A week or two away, I think.
Ooh.
That futures ticket is burning a hole in my pocket, Lock. UFC 277, Pena versus Nunez. I cannot wait.
Yeah, we'll save a little bit of that conversation for our fighter check-in for the Fighter Stonks that we do next week.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit more about it there. But let's talk a little bit about the matchups that got announced over the last 24 hours, man. The biggest of which, in my opinion, has got to be Petr Yan against Sean O'Malley. I think that's the one that has everybody talking the most here. Big spot for Sean O'Malley. Credit to him for finally taking that fight that people didn't think he would take. A legitimate top 5 guy. I thought he was still going to linger around that top 10 mark, if I'm being honest, right? I thought he would have found another guy. Maybe wait to see the loser of Dominic Cruz against Marlon Vera or something like that. But he jumps right into the deep end here with Petr Yan. What are your initial thoughts about this matching and this pairing?
I am a little surprised, if we're being honest. I thought that it was also going to be something that he kind of tried to avoid, maybe take one more shot. Like, we all know that Pedro Munoz was pretty much the softest ranked fighter that he could possibly get for his style matchup wise. And then, of course, the UFC official rankings move Ricky Simón under Sean O'Malley the week of his fight, no less. For some unknown reason, they didn't want someone that dangerous and that bad of a matchup being ranked above Sean O'Malley. I guarantee you that was exactly why that move happened, because if Ricky Simón was ranked above Sean O'Malley, they wouldn't have any reason to avoid that fight. They wanted to make sure O'Malley could shoot a little higher than that. But I thought that they were going to give him somebody softer. I really did. I was shocked when Yan
was going to be Frankie.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be Frankie, or maybe even the rematch with Cheeto. Like, maybe they felt he was at the point where he could handle that fight, but I never expected it to be Petr Yan. And honestly, props to the guy. Most of you know, if you followed any of my content, I am openly the biggest Sean O'Malley hater on the internet today. But I do have to give him credit for the way he's managed his career to this point. And he is in the deep end. The time to stop running is now. You've got nowhere else to go, nowhere else to hide. He's going to have to fight these top 10 guys now. He's embracing that and going for the biggest fish he can. I'm like, okay, I respect it. Fucking A, go for it, kid. Have at it.
From a stylistic approach, like, I could see where he thinks he could probably have some advantages, which is being a little bit more active, right? That's usually what we've been shitting on with Petr Yan, is like his activity seems to wane a little bit. He makes fights closer than they should be. He starts to run away with it as we get deeper into fights. But this is a 3-rounder, right? He needs to go for it pretty much right off the bat. He needs to assert his dominance, his striking dominance, and really put it on Sean O'Malley. Otherwise, Sean could just probably kick his way to a decision from the outside, right? Unless Petr Yan stays adamant with his own leg kicks and his own offense, he should be able to make this a very tough night for Sean O'Malley. But like our guy, who is it here? To True Shot saying it's a good fight for O'Malley. A loss doesn't cost so much. I absolutely agree, because if he loses, he lost against Petr Yan. Finally took the step up that everybody wanted him to take. Came up on the short end. At least he, went for it. That's what matters. We've always been ragging on him for taking the Louis Smolka fight. That was the one he was supposed to have before he fought Chris Moutinho. Always taking these fights that are a little bit sketchy in terms of level of competition. But deep end, right? Everybody, there's a good chunk of people that believe Petr Yan deserved that decision against Aljamain Sterling. So people still consider him the champion. He's essentially taken on the champion, or at least the number 2 guy in the world at this point in time. So credit to Sean O'Malley. Again, a big step up from Pedro Munoz to Petr Yan. That is impressive in and of itself. So I love it. I'm here for it. I still think Yan wins that fight, but very, very happy to see that one get pointed out. What's the other announcement this week that you've been kind of foaming out the mouth at? We got Dillashaw against Aljamain Sterling coming up. Islam against Oliveira kind of snuck up on me. Obviously, I didn't get to watch these past weekend's fights live, and I believe that's where they ended up announcing it. But which one are you more excited for? Which title fight are you chomping at the bit for?
See, if I could, Luck, the one that I'm chomping at the bit for, the one I'm really excited about that I wasn't expecting coming, David Onama is filling in on short notice. Zubi Tahugov fell out of his fight with Nate the Train Landwehr. Give me all the David Onama fights. The way that kid fights, he is pure action, start to finish. And the same could be said for Nate Landwehr. Zubi Tahugov, get the fuck out of here. Like the guy, I'm sorry, that's a waste of a Nate the Train fight, in my opinion. This is a car crash. Like, this is a boxcar train pileup having Onama and Landwehr go at it. I am so excited for this fight now that it's announced. David Onama is one of these guys. Get him in there as often as humanly possible. I just want to keep watching him work. Somebody's going to sleep. It's probably Nate the Train, but this fight is going to be vicious as long as it lasts, and I love this short notice fill-in. I'll be honest.
From an entertainment perspective, that's probably be a banger of a fight. Probably even top those other 2 fights that I brought up when I posed that question to you. I like it. It has potential to be like David Onama against Mason Jones, right? To a certain extent. Like, I'd say Nate Landwehr is a poor man's version of Mason Jones to a certain extent, but like, I think it has that potential of just being a car crash of violence. A car crash of violence. That's where I want to claim that fight. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. When is that scheduled for as well? Do you have the date off the top of your head?
Yeah, that one is.
Because I feel like that's within a month or so.
Yeah, it's like next month. It's on the 13th. UFC San Diego.
There you go. And that's Chito Vera and Dominic Cruz, if I'm not mistaken. That's the headliner there. Again, big headliner there as well that I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that
3 weeks out.
3 weeks. I love it. I love it. So again, we got 2 of those title fights that I posed to you. Which one are you most excited about? The bantamweight title with TJ Dillashaw and Aljo, or the lightweight title, Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev?
This is such a tough call for me, man, because I'm a TJ truther, right? Like, I'm the guy that's been pounding the drum saying that TJ is way underrated. Everybody vilifies him for the PED situation. The fact is he's still one of the best fighters of our generation, and the fact is he's still a championship caliber fighter. I love that fight. I can't wait for that fight. But the answer has gotta be Islam versus Charlie O. There is no, like, I don't understand how anybody can have a title fight that ranks higher than that one for them from a fan perspective. Lightweight has been nothing but incredible. It's solid gold, stacked talent, and Charlie O has risen head and shoulders above the rest of the division. He's taken on every single tough fight recently along the way. He's knocked them all down. Islam Makhachev, on the other side of things, has taken a bit of an easier route. Everyone talks about how he doesn't have a top 10 guy in his, win column or anything like that, so he needs to be tested. But he is the heir apparent. Someone like Khabib saying that this is the guy that is going to take my place. He's just as good, if not better than me, younger, taller, longer, stronger. It's hard to argue with that. When Khabib says that shit, you sit up and you take notice. So these guys finally coming head to head, the car crash that is going to be the title fight between those two. I just wish that they would give Charlie O his belt back. But that's absolutely the spot, man. That is the fight. I can't wait to see that one. Their style clash is going to be intriguing because this is basically Tony versus Khabib on steroids, right? Like we all thought that Tony was going to be the guy because he had the jiu-jitsu credentials to maybe cause some issues for Khabib in the wrestling. We never got it. We never got to see it. Charles Oliveira is far better than Tony ever was. Like now we know that, right? With hindsight, we know that Tony Ferguson's style was not cut out to do what we thought maybe it would. Charlie Oliveira's style is. He's much more effective on the feet. He's less wild. He's more calculated in the grappling. And then you've got the offensive wrestling game of Makhachev. We have seen that guy rocked and wobbled on the feet. So this is going to be like an unmovable object meets an unstoppable force here. I can't wait for that fight, Luck. That's got to be the one. That answers all the questions for everybody.
I am right there with you, honestly. And I couldn't be happier that it's on my birthday as well. So talk about a great birthday gift that night, October 22nd, I believe, UFC 280. Yeah, dude, I agree with you. It gives me Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane vibes in a sense where you have a clear number one contender who everybody believes is going to be the guy that takes the throne and, takes the belt home with him. But as we saw in the Francis Ngannou fight, that guy had other plans and he was able to get that fight and get that win there. I wonder, it's a bit more favored in Islam Makhachev's fight or favor in this fight than it was in Cyril Gane's favor in the Francis Ngannou's fight. So I believe that we'll actually see Islam Makhachev get his hand raised here. But it's been a while since we've had a contender that'll likely be this big of a favorite over the champion, right? Like we had the Yuri Prochazka fight, but that line started to close as fight weeks start to get closer and fight day start to get closer. But I think that we're going to get like maybe minus 300, minus 400 Makhachev by fight time, considering how much love is there out for him and the whole Dagestani Russian tax that I always like to say is on fighters' names. Islam Makhachev has it in droves, honestly. Our guy Jordan Shep here said he auto-clicked Olive Boy at plus 210 when the line dropped. Not a bad line, from pre-tapes, from a pre-tape perspective, right? If there's anybody that's going to nullify the Dagestani wrestling of a guy like Makhachev, it's got to be somebody with the jiu-jitsu of Oliveira. It's got to be somebody who holds the UFC record for most submission victories. They got to be the guy that holds the record for most finishes, if I'm not mistaken, in the UFC as well. That's our guy, Charlie Oliveira. I believe it's most submissions. I might be off on the most finishes there, but yeah, please let us know in the live chat as well what fight you guys are looking forward to most in terms of fights that have been announced over the last couple of weeks. Clint with the hipster pick with the Onama and Nate Landwehr fight, which again, from an entertainment perspective, I'm sure it's going to deliver. I don't blame you for that one, but I know there's a bunch of other fights that were announced. What fights for people watching this thing live excites you most coming in the upcoming weeks or has been announced over the last couple of days?
Dude, I mean, even just the next couple cards, like Moreno versus Kaikara France is coming up. Alexander Pantoja versus Alex Perez. That's a great fight. Hold guy.
On, let me just do something real quick here. I can't find my phone, but I'm going to see if I can get Siri or Alexa, Google, whatever the fuck it is, to call my bank so I can take out a mortgage and put it on Brandon Moreno next week. Because
there you
go. Good God, what a spot, right? I don't know what people think that Kai France is going to change from what happened in the first fight. I get it. He beat our Dagestani darling Askar Askarov a couple months ago over there in Columbus, Ohio. But we saw this happen in the first fight. Kai France was supposed to go out there and outstrike Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno is like, nah. I am a new and invigorated Brandon Moreno with a great striking game and a great game plan now. I will outstrike you, mister, and I will win this fight. And I think he's going to be able to do that once again next week. And I'm excited for that. I think the odds are great for it. I'm gonna load up on that. That will be my lock of the night play. 5 units, no doubt about it. Not even looking back.
Brandon Moreno's my boy. One of my all-time favorite fighters. Absolutely love that guy. So yeah, I'll very likely find a way to have some exposure there and be on that side with you too.
There you go. Our guy Jordan Shep saying that Vicente Luque opened up at minus 145 over Jeff Neal. First of all, I completely missed that fight announcement because I did not know that fight was put together. But I think people continue to overlook Jeff Neal. Like, Vicente Luque, very lackadaisical performance last time against Bilal, albeit Bilal has a completely different style than Jeff Neal. But Jeff, man, I think he still has what it takes to hang in there. Like there was that one fight where people kept writing him off. It could have been the Santiago Ponzinibbio fight. I believe he won that fight if memory serves me correct. But a lot of people very low on Jeff Neal because of the, some of the troubles he's gotten into. Obviously, he had that DUI thing, but even dropping the ball in a main event slot against Wonderboy Thompson, like, hey, don't forget about Hands of Steel Jeff Neal. Remember how hot we were on him going into that Wonderboy Thompson fight.
Yep.
I don't think this Vicente Luque fight is as bad of a fight as my guy Jordan Shep's making it out to be.
I got that tattoo, Lock. I'm not allowed to fade Vicente Luque, so I can't bet on Jeff Neal regardless of the circumstances. That's just not something I do anymore.
Hey, it might, just you might be able to laser it off in anticipation for this matchup, because if we get solid dog money on Jeff Neal,
cost me money list, Lock, all time.
You can try it one more time. What's one more time, Clint?
One more drop in the hat. Why not?
Your daughter's college fund. It's all good.
I'm just gonna do it for the gimmick these days. Like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna fade him consistently, knowing damn well I'm donating to my bookie's kid's birthday party, because why not at this point?
It's like me trying to fade Tom Aspinall. Just never works out. You know what I mean? I'm not going to the well again this weekend and trying to get that dub. I'm trying to get the violence bet in that fight, if anything. But in terms of betting Curtis Blades, I can't stomach it. I cannot stomach going against a guy that I keep losing against. I get it.
Same boat.
Right? Like again, the one that always comes to mind for me is flipping on Joel Alvarez at the wrong time. Always fading him and then flipping on him when he fights a legitimate guy in Arman Sarukian. And good God, did I look like a dumbass? I didn't bet it, but like
those are the ones that hurt the most. Like, right, because you finally sell yourself on the guy that has just been beating you up time and time again. You finally flip, and that's when they get you. And that was me. I've actually been on the Joel Alvarez train, and I've been cashing tickets on the Joel Alvarez train, and I finally got off it at the wrong time. Because he fought Thiago Moises. Moises is big on Moises that I can't get right, and I finally sold myself that, you know what? I know Yoel is huge, but Moises should have all the tools he needs to win this fight. And of course, I flip at the wrong time. Could have cashed another nice fat underdog ticket on Alvarez. Nope. Give it all back, laying it with the favorite.
Yeah, it always hurts when we get stuck in those situations. For me, it's Tom Aspinall. It was Joel Alvarez. Hopefully for you, it doesn't end up being Vicente Luque, but it pretty much is at this point in time, is it not?
Yeah, we're already there. So, Locke, I think we're at maybe a good time to transition over into some of the few remaining segments that we will keep on the show. We had a good time talking about the announcements and getting all the good stuff rolling, but unless I'm mistaken, I think it's time for Fighter Stonks. All right, everybody. If you don't know the deal already, you should. We got to deal with Prediction Strike. Use promo code LOCK to get a free Fighter Stonk with a deposit of $20 or more. Locke and I both started with a $50 bankroll for us to go ahead and go head-to-head for a full calendar year. We're going to compete in the stock market. And what Fighter Stonks is, essentially, Prediction Strike is a... It's the stock market for human beings. So you've got athletes. They've got all the other sports too, by the way, NFL, NBA. So if you find somebody that you are big on, you can invest in them and watch them rise and fall as though it were an active stock market. Here is my group of fighters. This is my stable, I guess we'll call it. And I had a bit of a tough time out last week. I did go ahead and purchase Jack Shore, and that stung, Locke. I sold off some shares to get on this kid, and boy, did I take it in the shorts. A minus 30% return on that one. Unfortunately, this is not a guy that I think that I want to jump off of. I think I'm just going to have to kind of ride it out and see if he can get back to the number that I want him to be at and get my investment back at least on him. He is a solid fighter, a solid prospect. I do think he'll have success in the future. So long game, I think it's coming back up. I'm not going to jump ship. I'm going to stay on him. And we talked about it. Paddy the Baddy, baby. I got in and we got a nice 21% profit on this kid overall. Nice little price tag on him. He's sitting up at $2.29. And we have talked about it. I don't think he's going to be a champion, Lock. I don't think that he's going to ride all the way to the gravy train to the top of the division. But I do think that Barstool and the UFC are going to continue to put winnable fights in front of him. And because of that, I'm going to continue cashing in on him as a stock. He's coming up this week. I'm not doing anything with him. Definitely not selling off of him. And I expect that number to dip up even just a little bit after this one. And it's the same story with Molly McCann. I got Meatball on the roster, Lock, and I'm not getting off of her for any reason here. I think she's got a perfect matchup in front of her. Hannah Goldie is essentially a punching bag with muscles. I don't understand how she loses this fight. People out there are talking about Molly Meatball being overpriced at minus 400. Bro, how does she lose? Like, short of catching her toe in the cage as she goes around the outside of it and snapping her foot in half, she's not losing this fight. If she gets armbar from guarded, like, okay, maybe, but she doesn't even play in the guard. Like, that's not her game plan. She's faster. She hits harder. She's more technical. She's a better wrestler. I don't get it. There's no reason for me to cash out on Meatball Molly. I'm sticking to it. And I'll be honest with you, Luck. You know, I sold a fighter to make room for somebody else last week. So I don't have a lot of capital with my fighter stock game at this point. I'm not making any moves. I've got enough investment this week. I've already got several fighter stocks that are in play and are going to hopefully rise this week. I don't need to purchase anybody else. There's nobody on this card that is jumping off the page at me that I'm just like, ooh, I got to get me a piece of that guy. So I'm just going to let it ride for this week.
I have some thoughts in regards to how Molly McCann could potentially lose this fight, but
you can have thoughts, but you'd be wrong.
Hey, this could be a competitive 15-minute kickboxing matchup, and we know that Hannah Goldie could absolutely get some numbers up there.
It could be a kickboxing match, Locke. It could be a 15-minute kickboxing match. It may or may not be competitive, because if you know anything about Hannah Goldie, she doesn't put anything on her shots. She is like a point fighter to the core. There are no significant strikes that she lands, Locke. She opened up her last fight with, not her last fight, sorry, the Diana Bell beat the fight. 3 consecutive head kicks. Didn't leave a scratch. Not a mark on Diana Belvita's face from 3 consecutive head kicks. She got taken down and mauled by Emily Whitmire, who is not in the company anymore and was losing every second of that fight until she snatched an arm, which is something that Whitmire offers in a bow wrapping, a Christmas gift for all of her opponents. I don't agree, man. I don't think it's going to be competitive.
I don't personally. I'm not a big fan of the price tag here. I'm going to take at least a half unit shot on Goldie to make him competitive with output. Again, I know that the cards are kind of stacked against me here with the hometown judging and how the crowd's going to react every time Molly lands compared to how the crowd will react when Hannah Goldie lands. And also, obviously,
don't you put that evil on me, Jordan.
Shut up to Jordan. I love you, Jordan. I appreciate the love there. But yeah, it could be close. It could be close. And I'm willing to take the shot plus 320. But let's get to my fighter stocks. First of which, Sumo Darji, you're dead to me. It cost me a parlay
danger
that would have hit for 10K had he hit every other leg of my parlay hit except Sumo Darji. And I'm very upset at that because I probably should just put the under 2.5 in there instead of Sumo Darji, but is what it is. The guy goes out there, can't finish the job against Matt Schnell. I'll hold on to him for a little bit. Obviously, loses about 22% for me there, but I'll hold on to him for a little bit. Something I'm finally happy about is seeing green beside Khamzat Chimaev's name.
There you go.
Finally, because obviously the news that came out obviously a couple of days ago with him fighting Nate Diaz now, that's obviously impacted his stocks properly. And then, yeah, like we said, Sumo Darji this past weekend drops the ball for your boy. In terms of myself, Clint, did you end up pulling the trigger on Emily Ducati this past weekend? I can't recall if you actually ever stock or not.
I did. I don't know if I took her stock. I thought you were talking about betting. Let me double check my roster here because
I feel like you were the one that snuck it in right at the ending of the last fighter check-in that we did.
I am glad you mentioned that, Locke, because I do remember that happening. Let me see here. If for whatever reason it didn't go through, we need to correct this issue because I am not showing Emily Ducati on my fighter roster, but
I'm sure you were picking her up and decided not to pick her up.
No, No, because I sold 2 different stocks. You know what? Did I sell stocks off to get Jack Shore? I think I got Jack Shore
I
last
think it was
week.
Jack instead of
So
Ducati.
Emily Ducati is not on my roster lock.
Well, I think I'm going to take a little bit of Emily Ducati here, and I
Son of a
apologize for it
bitch.
because I'm a big fan of hers, honestly, and I was very happy with the performance that she put on this past week. She is $1.26 as of this moment. I'm going to take one stock of her right there. I think she could get she could get a couple good wins here. I think she can remain competitive with a good chunk of this division. I don't think she'll get a title by any means, but I do think she'll be able to pick up a couple wins, get into that top 10. I think she's ranked number 14 at this point in time. She'll at least get into the top 10, in my opinion, but I will be holding that share for as long as I can. Yeah, this weekend, there's nothing else that I really want to look at in terms of buying. I was looking at getting in on Jack Hermanson as well, but he's at $2.50. I don't really want to take that shot there because, yes, I do think he can win his next couple fights, but I just don't think we'll see as much of a increase on his price. So I don't think it's worth the risk there. I was considering pulling the trigger on Volkan Oezdemir as well, but it all depends on what his matchups are like after he goes out there and knocks out the Bear Jew this weekend. I just don't think it's that favorable for him. So that's where I'm going to keep mine. I'm just going to stick with the Emily Ducati buy there. I will eventually have to sell some fighters. I'll probably do that on next week's episode of the check-in. But yeah, I'll go with Emily Ducati. What do you got? I see you working there in the background.
I do have one.
Go
so I do want to just kind of run through and talk. You know, I looked at my guy Chris Curtis. This is obviously the sketchiest fight he's been in since he's been in the organization. I wish I had snagged him weeks ago. I've been betting him nonstop since he got to the organization. So I don't want to buy high on him in the most dangerous spot he's been in at this point. So I'm going to pass on that. And there are some rising contenders here, you know, guys like Diaz, Nathaniel Wood, Jonathan Pierce, a guy. I think I sold Jonathan Pierce last week actually because I was a little sketched out about this matchup. So like there's spots where you could invest this week, hoping that these young fighters pass the test. But instead, I think I'm actually going to take a super flyer on Charles Johnson lock because he is only 57 cents. Now, I don't know about you, but watching Fighter Stonks, most of them are in the ballpark of 60, 70, 80 cents. Nobody's as low as 57 cents. So this is already somebody that I think Prediction Strike maybe just a little bit too low on. If you've watched any of the tape leading up to this fight, if you know anything about this man, Charles Johnson, he is an incredible athlete. He's back class for days. He trains out of Tiger Muay Thai. He's an LFA champion. Like, this guy is no joke. He's only 31 years old, so it's not like he's a 35, 36-year-old making a late run in the UFC. This is a good, solid, well put together fighter. And I know a lot of people are expecting him to just get tapped out immediately by Makhachev on Saturday. But the reality is, like, even if he does get tapped out immediately versus Makhachev, this stock ain't going nowhere. Is it going to go lower than this? Is he going to drop down to 40 cents? Like, I don't know that you get much lower than this price tag. So even with a loss, because that's built into the price right now, they're expecting him to lose. I don't see this guy going anywhere but up. Even with a loss in this next fight, he will rise in his next couple of fights in the UFC. I've got faith in this guy, Charles Johnson. And if he derails someone like Makhachev, I expect this price to jump up quite a bit after Saturday. So I will take this ultimate buy low spot on a guy that I think just nobody knows about. He's getting disrespected. I like Charles Johnson, and I think he can make the fight very competitive on Saturday.
I like it. I saw you take the plus 400 shot on him. I like it.
Yeah.
I got in a little bit later. I got in at plus 360. I think it's a great underdog spot. And I believe you're on the nose here, man. Even with the loss, I think he can still go out there and get a couple of quality UFC victories because, yeah, I think he's better than some of the guys on the current roster. So this Makhachev win would be a great one for him. But I think the longevity of that stock has some very good potential and some good value. So sharp play there. I see my guy Joshua Frick asking me, how are neither of us getting in on the Action Man? Because I'm betting heavily against the Action Man this weekend. I think Jack Hermanson is a horrible matchup for him, and I think that we're getting a great line here at even money. Haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I think I'm going to pull it because it seems like action is starting to come in against the Action Man. So I like it there.
And I should have got him, Joshua. Quite frankly, I've been beating the drum for Action Man all this time. I should have had him as a stock weeks ago. That's an oversight by your boy. And honestly, I'm not going to buy into him now just because I'm not sure how much higher that stock goes on Prediction Strike. If he happens to lose to the Joker on Saturday, maybe I snag him next week, because if that stock drops a little bit, I do expect him to continue moving up again. We'll see what happens next week. I'll reevaluate at that point.
That's exactly what Jordan Shep was saying here as well. His stock is probably too high. Got to buy low and sell high. Would be buying the top even if he wins here. Exactly. Yeah, right now on Prediction Strike, he's listed at $1.59. So we could see his stock drop a little bit with the loss this weekend. Then you get on him when he decides to go back to his natural weight class of 170 pounds and actually tries to, storm towards a title shot there. All right, let us get to the last segment of the day. But before we do that, once again, a big shout out to Prediction Strike. Make sure you guys use promo code LOCK. You get a free fighter stock with a deposit of $20 or more. Just let them know that we sent you guys and that Prediction Strike. I definitely see it growing. I know people are jumping on it more and more as weeks pass by. I'm glad that me and Clint were one of the first guys to really start to promote it, try to push it. And who knows about what our future could be with Prediction Strike moving forward. We'll see about that. But make sure you guys use the code and enjoy your free Friday stock. All right, let us get into the last segment of the day, and that is when me and Clint put our metal up against each other here and try to make picks, try to top each other in the Deadlock Duel. All right, here we go. Clint has got his, there you go. He's got it ready to go. And I'm dead. I wasn't ready at all for that. I apologize. So let's get a quick recap of the points here. So this is the beginning of the third quarter of the challenge here. Obviously, Clint won the first two quarters. I got a little bit shit-faced last time around. It's all good. Trying to get it back.
Good times were had by all.
Exactly. Good times were always had. But Clint kicks it off with a little bit of a lead here after the first two events of the quarter. He ended up going with Fiziev and Borralho, who cashed at UFC Vegas 58 for 2 points for him. He followed that up on UFC Long Island with 2 points on Yair Rodriguez, although by, TKO via injury.
Bullshit.
Win is a win is a win. That's all that matters, Clint. And then he followed that up with a quick 1-point victory with Amanda Lemos going out there and getting that beautiful guillotine choke against the Karate Hottie. So he gets 5 points. I end up with 4 because I had Fiziev. So that's one. I had Said Nurmagomedov. That's another one. So 2 points for UFC Vegas 58. But I only ended up with 2 points at UFC Long Island because I also was on the Yair Rodriguez side, but I picked goddamn Sumudarji and he drops the ball. He fumbles the bag for me there. So I end up with 4 points. So all in all, Clint currently leads the challenge at 5-4. He's up by 1, but managed to keep it close, and hopefully we can keep it going that way. All right. In terms of picks, I believe I will be kicking it off here for UFC London, and then you'll be getting first selection on the following card, which I believe is UFC 277. So
sounds fair enough to me.
Main card picks. Let me just pull up the main card here real quick for you guys. Blades and Aspinall. Main event. I'll stick with my guns. I'll stick with Curtis Blades here. Toughest test of Tom Aspinall's career. Well, I think we'll truly see his cardio finally get tested. I know there is that early threat of Tom Aspinall having the knockout power, having the speed and the power to just find that chin, the timing, all of that can find the possible chin of Curtis Blades here and put him out. That seems to be the bane of Curtis Blades' run at the top of the division. He can't ever get past those guys with the big bombs. Tom Aspinall, not as big of a puncher per se as Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, but he can definitely get to the target pretty quickly, and that might be all he needs to find that chin of Curtis Blades and get him out of there. But I think Curtis Blades will survive that, wrap him up, drag this fight to the ground, give us a patented Curtis Blades type performance, and eventually get him out of there by the third round. So give me the underdog money here on Curtis Blades, hopefully to get 2 points right there. On the rest of the main card, I am going to go with Volkan Oezdemir. I think he goes out there. I think he knocks out Paul Craig. I think his takedown defense is good enough to keep this fight upright. And then from there, the fight is pretty much in his favor. Alexander Rakic went 1 of 9 on takedowns against Volkan Oezdemir. Magomed Ankalaev went 1 of 4 on takedown attempts against Volkan Oezdemir. I think his takedown defense is good enough to deal with whatever Paul Craig is going to be putting together here. Not to mention the reckless abandon that Paul Craig throws with in his striking. He's going to pay for it dearly here when Volkan Oezdemir lands one of those crisp hooks, one of those crisp counters, puts him out, puts him to sleep, gets that dub for your boy. Give me Volkan Oezdemir, Clint. And once again, in the main event, I'll go with Curtis Blades. What about yourself? What are you liking for UFC London?
Oh, so I think if you're betting this fight, it's dog or pass. Curtis Blades, I honestly think, Locke, that if Francis Ngannou doesn't exist, that Curtis Blades is your heavyweight champion right now. However, Tom Aspinall is that dude for me right now. I can't pick against him. He just crushes my soul every opportunity he gets. If I go on the other side of him, he finds a way to win that damn fight. So in honor of the competition, I'm going to pick Tom Aspinall just because I am not betting this fight. So even though I think it's kind of a dog or pass, I'm going to go opposite of you for the contest so that we're not lining up here on this pick. I'm just going to make sure you and I are not on the same side for this main event, just for shits and giggles. All right. And for the main card this week, I'm feeling a little spicy.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with Alexander Gustafsson.
Ooh.
Underdog against Nikita Krylov. And I'm searching for those points. Like, I think that this man is being highly underrated because of what happened and how he exited the UFC the last time around. His mind appears to be right. His body is in shape. He's back at the right weight class. And let's be honest, if we jump into a time machine 2 years ago, he's minus 400 versus Nikita Krylov. This is a spot where we're getting insane value on a number because everyone is not sure if Gus is back. And from the interviews I've been hearing this week, Locke, I'm pretty sure he's back. And I struggle to find an area where Nikita Krylov can really have success against Gustafsson. I honestly think that he is a perfect matchup for Alexander to get back here and remind everybody what he's all about. I like the dog. Give me Gus.
I don't mind it. I did a show with Brandon Olivas last night, and I ended up on the Krylov
was in
side.
the chat a little earlier having some fun.
I was originally on Krylov, and then I started to look into it a little bit more. And then by the time I did my podcast, an hour or so after that podcast, I ended up flipping to Gus as well, man. The guy looks highly motivated. The guy looks in great shape. Being disciplined or having to be disciplined so that he makes 205 pounds, I think is going to go a long way for him here, which will allow him to fuel his game plan, which made him so successful in the UFC to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. That footwork, that movement, that combination boxing style, like, I think that's going to pay off for him here. So I don't mind it, man. Good shot there on the underdog there at Gustafsson. Hopefully one of those ends up losing and I end up cashing on both of mine, but we'll see how that goes. So you'll lead things here on UFC 277.
All right. UFC
I believe
277.
It's two title fights, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that means we'll do both the title fights.
And main event, co-main event, and one main card.
Exactly. Bingo.
All right. I'm ready, Locke. I'm ready. You already know. We got Nunez taking on Juliana Pena, and I've said it time and time again, Locke, and they just don't listen to me. It is disrespectful to make the sitting champion an underdog. I don't care that Amanda Nunez is the GOAT. I don't care how long her resume is. Juliana Pena was built in a lab to defeat this woman, and people can't accept that. She showed you last time what she can do. Amanda Nunez is not built to defeat Juliana Pena, and it doesn't matter if she comes out faster. It doesn't matter if she comes out slower. It doesn't matter if she worked out harder or built a gym just for herself in her own backyard. She's not winning this fight. Juliana Pena, main event pick for UFC 277. Co-main event pick, I think we're going to line up on this one. Brandon Moreno, we already talked about it. You said you're going to go lock of the night deep on it. I completely agree. He's already beaten Kai Kara-France. He's been challenging, Figgy. We know the durability of Moreno. It's impossible to knock this man out. And that's really Kai Kara-France's only win condition. He's not going to win this fight unless he can hit the button of Brandon Moreno, and nobody hits the button on Brandon Moreno. So I'm pretty sure my guy is going to get that belt back. And I love it because he's one of my all-time favorites. This is where it gets interesting because I'll be honest with you, Locke, I haven't looked into these other matchups. So we've got Derek Lewis and Sergey Pavlovich. Pantoja versus Perez, and Ankalaev versus Smith. And it would just make me so happy to take Anthony Smith and go ahead with you and watch Ankalaev go down in flames. But this ain't it. This ain't it. I don't think I can, in good conscience, burn the point that I have ahead of you, because for you that are new, that don't know, I'm 2-0 on the Deadlock Duel. I haven't had to do a power hour yet. And I know y'all want to see it, but it's my job to make sure it doesn't happen and to keep Locke drinking. So I'm not just going to hand over this round to him. I'm going to take Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis can get back on track against a guy like Sergey Pavlovich. I know Sergey is a big, strong power puncher, but the fact is people can't figure out what to do with Derek Lewis, and he ends up being like a pick 'em price tag or even money after a loss like every time, because they're like, oh yeah, shit, like look at him get dominated. He's just not that good. No, he's still like the number 4 guy in the division, people. He just can't beat Francis Ngannou. He just can't be, you know what I mean? Like that's where Derek Lewis firmly sits. I'm not sold on Sergey Pavlovich. He is 15-1. He's a big, hairy monster. I think that Derek Lewis can punch him in the face as well as anybody else. Pick 'em price tag, slight favorite. I don't like it, but I'll be honest, I don't like any of those 3 fights from like a solid, strong standpoint at this time. So I'm just going to roll with that. We'll go Pena, Moreno, Lewis.
All right, well, I have some dissension, at least in the main event here. I'm going to go with Amanda Nunez. I really don't think she just was... I really think she was just overlooking this fight. I think that she thought she could just go in there and just go into berserker mode, and one of those shots was going to put Pena down. Now I think she's learned from that mistake. I think she's going to go in there with the smarter game plan, try to, use her striking a little bit more effectively and portion out that gas tank a little bit better.
So she'll gas in the third instead of the first, is what you're saying.
We'll see about that. We'll see about that. We'll see. Now, just stick that jab out there. Keep active. Just beat Pena up on the feet. She's the better striker. She just needs to be smarter about it, in my opinion. I think she can do enough in terms of keeping this fight upright. I don't think the takedowns of Pena will matter too much as long as Nunez doesn't gas out like she did the last time around. So give me Nunez, and I'll probably be parlaying her. Honestly, I'm fine with it at this time. As long as the price continues to stay at a reasonable spot. I think right now it is minus 285. So the line's getting better. I like that. So I'll go with Nunez in the main event. So some dissension there between me and Clint. Co-main event, like you said, we're on the same spot here. Brandon Moreno gets that interim strap, eventually fights Figgy again later this year. Don't need to get too deep into that. And then for the main card, of course, I'm going to go with my guy, Magomed Ankalaev. I don't care if I'm, trying to look for a dog or anything like that. There are no dogs. And those are the 3 fights that I'm looking at. They're like, intriguing. Like, Alex Perez actually could be intriguing now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm going to go with Ankalaev. I'm going to get that guaranteed dub. That's the motto for this quarter of the Deadlock Duel is just guaranteed dubs, Clint. Let's try to get those guaranteed dubs. I know Sumo was supposed to be a guaranteed dub this past week, but fuck it.
Put some respect on the name of my man, Matt Danger Snell.
That was a crazy fight, honestly. I'll tell you this real quick, Clint. I'll tell you this. I went to a family barbecue that night, which is why I wasn't able to watch the fights live. I dropped off Alfred to my guy Rex Lee's place. A lot of people would know Rex. He's a big supporter of all the big content creator guys in the space. And when I got back to pick up Alfred that night, and he just looks, first thing he says to me, he looks at me, he goes, "Man, that card was weird." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, how was that card weird?" He goes, "Just go back and watch it." I'm like, so I fucking watched it. Match Snell thing. I'm like, "Oh, okay, great. Sumerdarji, here we go. Here comes the dub. Here comes the win." Nope. Match Snell's like, "Nah, dog. I'm just going to let him punch it. I'm going to go Homer Simpson in this bitch. I'm going to let this guy punch himself out, and then I'm going to tap him out after that. And then let's follow that up. How about with Brian Ortega snapping his shoulder or breaking his shoulder, whatever the hell it is,
to end off the night.
He was right. He was right. Definitely right. But there you guys go. There's your dog.
Dogs are barking.
I think it's yeah, exactly. Good God. Hopefully it's not about Anthony Smith. And I do quickly want to say the guy that you ended up snatching late in one of our Fighter Stonks segments was Saeed Jokob Kakramanov. That was the guy that I was pissed off about that you ended up snatching. So shout out to my guy Elijah Dream for letting us know that was the one. That is a diehard fan if I ever seen one, honestly. Remembering shit better than us about our own show.
You guys are awesome. Speaking of diehard fans, real quick, before we wrap up, Locke, we got to shout out our guy Joshua here saying, "When are we getting Deadlock gear so we can buy and spread the word about the show. You know what, Joshua? We've been talking about that because, to be quite frank, it's criminal that we have as badass of a logo as we do with no merch on it. So we will get on that because I absolutely need a Deadlock shirt, and I think Locke can say the same, and some of you all in the chat might be able to say the same as well. I mean, here, just look at this thing. Just look at it. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, we definitely need to get some merch going at some point.
No, for sure. I think we had higher aspirations of where this podcast would be at, this many months into it. I think that's kind of what's holding us back from getting into the merch. But once we start to get that ball rolling, once we really start to get it going, I think people will be excited to finally rep that merch. And again, look at that goddamn logo. Yep. So sexy.
We got to make sure it's worth fronting the cost of getting the merch. Just have it be worthwhile, because if we dig ourselves into a hole and this thing ends up going nowhere because not enough people jump on the Deadlock bandwagon, it'll end up being a bummer for Locke and I, and we'll just use those t-shirts as tissues to cry and dry our faces off after we're done. So
I'm sure people would still buy it, honestly, even if the show doesn't take off. It's just so badass.
We just don't need to put the name on it. We'll just use the logo and sell the badass shirt. They'll have no idea they're wearing
our own clothing company
merch. They're just like, it looks cool.
Could you imagine just starting our own clothing company and that just ends up being our rags to riches type of story?
We will spin this. We've gone from MMA content creators to now we have a clothing line, all because our logo is badass.
A clothing empire.
It's funny. We're on Shark Tank, and guys, people didn't want to listen to us talk. We thought they were going to love us talking about MMA. They didn't. They hated it. They couldn't stand it, but they really liked our logo, and we just made a bunch of shit. And now everyone wears it, and we're multimillionaires. Invest in us and our awesome clothing company. Come on, Damon Jackson. You'll fit right in here.
Just private jets to every single UFC event, only wearing Deadlock Clothing Company. Shout out to my guy Allah's One Dream for trying to drop the name here. I love it. All right, that pretty much does it for the show, if I'm not mistaken here. Love everybody for showing the support, trying to get you guys involved as much as possible. I know whenever I watch a show that takes live comments and live chat stuff, I'm really down with that. Joshua Frick down with the Deadlock thong.
Deadlock OnlyFans coming soon.
Justin J saying I would buy a Deadlock baseball hat. Maybe that's not a bad idea either.
Look,
that's always like the best piece of merch.
I think we may have made the best choice possible for the show, because loosening the restrictions on this thing, not being quite so formatted, I think this episode was more fun. We had more live viewers tune in today. And
we did.
From the chat, these guys are popping. Everybody's enjoying the back and forth. You guys let us know. I am going based off of my experience here today, but I felt like this was one of our more fun episodes. If you agree, please let us know. Hit the like. Once the video is over, put a comment in the comments section, because the live chat doesn't count towards the comment section. So let us know in the comments section after the episode is over if you felt like this format was more fun and more enjoyable for you, because I definitely think it was.
I love it. No, I love it. I think you're right as well, because this went by pretty quickly. Like, I looked over at the clock and I was like, hey, are you kidding me? Seriously? It's already over an hour. So no, I am absolutely on board with that. I think a lot of people would agree that having the chat participation was the best. Just make sure you guys drop a comment and let us know that is what you guys prefer. And reminder that it is also on all podcasting platforms. So if you did miss the majority of the show and want to just catch the audio versions, you guys can catch it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, all that stuff. It's all up there. So make sure you guys go rate it, support it, all that as well. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Clint, you want to get us out of here with one of your famous quotes?
Back at you guys. Absolutely love you all. Thank you very much for the support. We appreciate it. And just remember, never give up. Never.
One last thing. Sorry, one last thing. Jordan Shep saying allow super chats. I couldn't sub one for some reason. Super chats are only available once we get to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers. That is YouTube bare minimum requirement. We need 1,000 subscribers. So let's run that shit.
We also have to have a certain number of hours of viewership. Sure, I found out on my channel. Which, it's funny because I put zero effort into my own personal YouTube channel. So I have all the check boxes except for the amount of hours watched. So now I'm like, well, shit, I got to come up with content for people to watch on my personal YouTube channel before I can monetize it. No, by the time we get to 1,000 subscribers, we should be here on the Deadlock podcast. And then, of course, we can definitely do stuff like that. And if you guys want to do, other preview streams, wrap-up streams, Q&As, like all that stuff comes with the support, which likes, comments, sharing the podcast. We'll get there. We will get it there. So if you guys want to continue to support us, that's the best way that you can. Once this channel blows up, we'll do a whole lot more for you. We promise.
Yeah, I think something that a lot of people would look forward to is like an immediate recap show, if that's something that we can fit into our schedule. People want to talk about the fights as soon as they wrap up, and I think we can provide a great community and platform for people to do that. I'm sure people in the live chat would agree as well. But let's get to that 1K mark first. Once we get to that 1K mark, let's go. Deadlock Army. That's some more merch ideas as well that we can put up there for you guys. Shout out to our guy Joshua Frick for that suggestion. All right, Clint. Now you can wrap up the show. I promise. I'll stop looking at the live chat.
It's all. I already hit my goofy sign out. So I mean, I don't think there's anything else we can do at this point except roll with it. Deadlock Army. Let's go, everybody. Go. Have a wonderful week, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll see you next week on Locke's channel for the check-in for Fighter Stonks. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday for that. And we will see you, as always, bi-weekly. So catch you guys later. Good luck at UFC London. Mimosas and waffles, baby. Deadlock Army.